Okay.
Hello, good morning all. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Uh, Let me introduce myself. My name is Stephanie and my partner,
My
Haning Mada.
my name is Madhani Ngayuarsari. Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to present our presentation about premises for critical literacy. So let's start our presentation. So premises. Next slide, please. All right. So let's take a look at this organization first before we define what a premise is. All right, so a premise is basically a part of the argument, but we start with the logic first. The logic is the main point of this focus. After the logic, we have the arguments, because the arguments is the part of the logic, because the logic studied how to evaluate the arguments, and arguments also are constructed by premises and also conclusions, and premises have their own premise indicators, and also the conclusions have their own conclusion indicators. So let's take a look what premises are. All right, so what can we conclude from the organization previously? So let me define one by one. Why do we talk about this as the unity? Because premise is a part of arguments and argument is a part of logic. So we begin with the logic first. Logic is the study of the methods to evaluate arguments. And arguments itself is a part of the logic, that are sets of statements where one of those statements, the conclusion, is affirmed on the basis of the others or the premises. So we can gain from the definition of the arguments there, it has two constructors, conclusions and also premises. Now we move on to the premises. The premises and conclusions are arguments constructors, and premises themselves are the statements on the basis of which the conclusion is affirmed. What about conclusions? The conclusions are the statements that are affirmed on the basis of the others. Premise indicators. Remember, in the previous organization, premises has their own premise indicators. So what are they? Premise indicators are words or phrases indicating that what comes immediately after them is a premise on the basis of which a conclusion is affirmed. So it's a word or phrase. It can be a word, it can be phrases. And the conclusion indicators are words or phrases indicating that what comes immediately after them is a conclusion affirmed on the basis of the premises supplied elsewhere in the argument. Right. Let's take a look what's next. All right, so we have a conclusion in here. We can define what a premise. So a premise is a constructor of an argument of which the conclusion is affirmed. That is a premise. All right, so if we can analog them, the premise and the conclusion, it's just like when we are having sentences, when we are making sentences, cause and effect sentences. The cause one is the premises. The effect one is the conclusion. So let's here, we have examples of premises indicators like because, for, as, since, after all, owing to, inasmuch as. These examples are indicating premises. Remember, premises indicators are words and or phrases that belongs to the premise, that becomes the cause of the incidents or the event. Next, please. All right, now we are moving on to the conclusions indicators. Remember that I said before, when we are deciding which one is the premise, which one is the conclusion, it's like when we are making a sentence, a cause and effect sentence. The cause one is the premise and the effect one is the conclusions. So now we are having the conclusions indicators such therefore, consequently, so, thus, for this reason, accordingly, and hence. These indicators or these words shows the effect of the event. Next will be presented by my partner.
Thank you for the time, Stephanie. Now I want to tell about the example, premise, and conclusion. The first one is there are you can look at the left on my hand. There are texts that say Mr. Connell, the gentleman who live on the corner down the street on his morning walk every day, rain or shine. So something must have happened to him because he had no show up today. There are two premises. The first one is Mr. Connor come down the street on his morning walk every day, rain or shine. Premise 2, he has not show up today. The conclusion of this premise is if Mr. Connor not come today, the conclusion is something must have happened to him. The second text is my right side. Say every officer on the force has been certified, and nobody can be certified without scoring about 70% on firing rates. Therefore, every officer on the force must have scored about 70% on the firing rates. There are two premises. The first one is every officer on the force has been certified. Premise 2, nobody can be certified without scoring about 70% on the firing range. Conclusion, therefore, every officer on the force must have scored about 70% on the firing rates. Next, you have to remember that in argument, there can be unstated premise and conclusion as well. For example, you cannot check book out of the library without an ID card. So Bill won't be able to check any book out. You can see from this text that unstated premises in this text is Bill has no ID card. The second one is the political party that best reflects mainstream opinion will win the most seat in the next election, and the Republic certainly best reflects mainstream opinion. You can see in this text that there is a unstated conclusion. The Republicans will win the most seats in the next election. Now it's your turn to list the premise and the conclusion in each of following argument. Since cheese is so tasty, we ought to put it on top of our fried egg. This is especially true given that Gabe like cheese. And second one, all your friends think you look better as a blonde. Green hair is unnatural. People with strongly colored Hair attracts trouble. Therefore, you should get rid of that ghastly green hair. So now it's your time to type your answer here. What do you think about those texts? Which one is premise? Which one is conclusion? Okay, next, I think that's all our presentation. I will give back to Stephanie.
All right, so as you can see in this page, you can see our references we took from the book Introducing Logic and Critical Thinking, and also from the journal from Kaufman, A.J. Kaufman, about finding, clarifying, and evaluating arguments. Next slide, please. And I think that's all from us. All right. Thank you very much for having attention to our presentation about premises today. Hope you can learn something about, you can get something about premises. You can understand about what logic is, what arguments is, and then what premise is, and what conclusion is, what are premises indicators, and what are conclusions indicators. All right. Thank you very much. Have a nice day, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, all.